Hello, everybody. We are here with Teresa Roca, the assistant entertainment editor for The Sun. Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing well.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to sit down and talk with you. When I teased this episode, my listeners were like, oh my God, I got so many DMs with so many questions. I had to kind of tone it down because I was like, she can't answer some of these. Like,
I
come
know,
on.
I was gonna say, hopefully I can answer many of them. So,
Yeah. And if you can't just say that, and we
okay.
have to respect that. I mean, you're doing us like such a service by being here and
Thank you.
telling us all this stuff. Okay. So, really quickly, I just want to give a little introduction into who you are.
Okay.
Um, so you are a reporter, an editor,
Mhm.
and your previous experience was with Radar Online,
Yes.
who a lot of us know as one of the most prolific Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
I know.
It's like should be holding a diamond on its own, but it's just not. You reported on Teresa Giudice's tax troubles. Like,
Hmm.
wow, our first real criminal.
Hmm.
Selena's killer, you followed that whole thing. You
Yeah.
covered the Amanda Knox interview
Hmm.
and even the Duggars way back then, like before this all became as in the forefront of people who didn't even watch TLC
Yeah.
as it is now.
Hmm. Yes.
And now you're working for the Sun,
Hmm.
which is just like, oh my gosh, so, so cool. And we met at the Jen Shaw sentencing. So
Yeah.
you've been covering that. And I just want to touch on a few of these things before we like dive in.
Yeah.
You covered Mike the situation and his sentencing, the
Yeah.
whole Josh Duggar trial, the Duggar lawsuit with the
Hmm.
sisters against the police,
Hmm.
Chris Chrisley, Nick Cannon, I'm sorry, Nick Cannon, Nick Carter,
Yes.
sister wives, like the whole nine.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah.
my first question to you is how did you end up with everybody's dream job of reporting on the actual most important things in the world, like our reality stars? How do you get that job? That's amazing.
So growing up, I was obsessed with reality stars. I watched every single reality show as a child. I would go to the grocery store, pick up People magazine, Us Weekly, every magazine I'd read. Um, and I loved writing. I loved journalism. I also loved law. I wanted to be a lawyer growing up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I don't want to give up my love of like reality TV and writing. So I thought I would do kind of a mix and do journalism and do entertainment journalism at that. And in school, they don't really teach you entertainment journalism. It's kind of something you need to like push yourself into. So I interned at iVillage, which was like under NBC, but it was an entertainment website, Time Out New York. I tried to like immerse myself into it before getting into the job field. And then I started working at Bauer, which has like In Touch, J14.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then yeah, and then my first job was at Radar Online as a web producer. So I would just build the stories
Oh
and
my
which
gosh.
means like basically like copy and pasting into like the CMS and publishing them and adding photo. And that's where I learned kind of like I was I was I was building all of these exclusive stories and I was like, how did that person speak with like Sonia Morgan from Housewives?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's
like
incredible.
so I went to my boss and I was like, I want to be an exclusives reporter. Uh, like show me how to do this.
Yeah. Oh, we love a go-getter.
Yeah. So they were like, we're gonna put you at OK Magazine. You're gonna learn writing there. So I did. I was a
Oh my
writer.
God.
That's where I started off. And then I would see tips come in. I think one of the first tips I did was like David Easton, Janelle Evans' husband or boyfriend at
Mm-hmm.
the time. Someone was like, this guy's been arrested 1,000 times. So I was like, I want to do this. And yeah, I kind of had to like climb my way up there. My boss now, Gina, she was at Radar. She helped me so much. Just, learn how to do it. And I feel like that's how I got into it.
I mean, that's like so fun. So you really were just like, oh, I like this. And now you're going to pay me to do this. Like, that's so cool. And how cool to have a boss that's just like so supportive and is like, great, we're going to start you at OK Magazine, just like a super cool place. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you first started covering these stories, like, so you get it from a tip line? I don't understand. Like, is that
Yeah.
like an email thing and people are like, oh, you might want to look into this, and then you start going, or
Yeah, so every a lot of websites, especially entertainment, have tip lines. If you go on the
Mhm.
website, you'll see like we pay for money, like
Oh yeah.
we pay for stories. And a lot of how I started was, I didn't have any sources. So
Mhm.
a lot of my sources I did build from the tip line. And people, yeah, they email in, and then over time you keep in contact with them, you build these sources. Sometimes, you've reached out to celebrities themselves. Speaking about Sonia Morgan before, I had sent her a comment request on a story, and then we started talking. And then,
Mhm.
she became someone that I had a relationship with a while ago. And yeah, that's how it works. And then, going to events, meeting people, like how you and I met each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when the housewife, so one of the questions that I got a lot, like frequently, was do these housewives just call you up and plant the stories? How we're always watching these storylines of being like, well, Ray Dot Online has the, Juicy Lucy Apple Goosey or whatever the hell, storyline. And I always wonder, like, is Lisa just like texting you guys like, oh my God, Dorita's such a bitch or something, or do you take it like, is it more serious, like to get the story?
Um, I don't know if I can say if
Okay. Ooh, we love
it,
that. Okay.
but
Great.
we
Well, it's your
do.
sources, right? If
Yeah,
you
yeah.
really
And
give them up.
and we give, if there's like a big storyline on Housewives, and we have sources telling us what's happening before it comes out, we will, contact and give a comment call.
Hmm.
Because we and give them the opportunity to give their side of the story.
Hmm.
I'm sure a lot of reporters do have relationships with, specific housewives and
Right.
stuff.
I
But
mean, it's a small world at the end of the day, too.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So when you reach another question we got a lot was when you send the reaching out for comments and you're like, oh, do you have anything to say about this?
Hmm.
Before you publish the story, like about how long do they have to respond? Like, what if it's a long weekend? Is
Yeah.
it ever just kind of an ambushy thing, or do you give them like a week or?
So it depends on the story. So
Hmm.
for example, if and you'll see this a lot if a lawsuit breaks, like say like the Chrisley lawsuit breaks,
Yes.
that's something where like every outlet's gonna get that complaint.
Hmm.
So you don't want to get scooped. So you'll send them a comment request and you're kind of just with something like that it's court docs, black and white, you can publish it right away and add,
Hmm.
they did not respond immediately for comment.
Hmm.
But if it's something where you're not going to get scooped on it, it depends on the claims. If it's
Hmm.
something that it's just like, oh, well, Melissa and Teresa got into a fight, that's
Hmm.
something maybe we can give like a few hours. Obviously, if they're in LA, we have to give them,
Right.
um,
A little more time to wake up.
a little more time to wake up. Yeah, 'cause they're sleeping. But if it's, we'll give a few hours. If it's something like, like a sexual abuse story or something very
Right.
serious, that's something that will give, anywhere from 24 hours to until they respond, really.
Hmm.
I had recently done, do you guys cover do you watch Teen Mom?
A lot of my listeners watch Teen Mom. Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
So
Very
we had
interested in the Janelle of it all.
Oh yeah, of course. So when Leah and Jalen called off their engagement, I had a source tell me that, he had been messaging other people and that was the reason they split. That was something where we couldn't post it until we heard back from his rep
Right.
because, it was, that's accusing him of cheating, right? So and we did, his rep got back to us. So yeah, it really depends on the story, but
Yeah.
we try to give them enough time to respond.
And especially if they have like representation, those people are usually like monitoring their emails. So it's not like, right? I would
Yeah,
assume.
well,
Yeah.
That's what's difficult with reality stars because a
Mm,
lot of them have representation. So like their reps will get back to us quickly, or like we know they just don't want to answer.
right, right.
But then if you have like, like Mackenzie McKee or someone like that who doesn't have representation, I'm gonna have to text them or like give them
Right.
a
Or
phone
give them a
call.
heads up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
it's a little
That
harder when they don't have a wrap.
yeah, yeah. I I can only imagine like it reminds me of Kanye, like, I cannot be managed.
Yes, yes, exactly. How do you comment request Kanye West?
I
Like,
know, right? Maybe you just don't. So we met at Jen Shaw's sentencing,
mhm.
and I want to know like how you got to cover that. Like that's so fun. Was it because you are a Housewives fan or you got assigned? What happened?
So I love anything law. Whenever someone gets sued, I'm like, I'm like to my editor Gina, I'm like, can I cover this? Like I will
Yeah.
follow the case. So when Jen got her lawsuit, I did a story on the complaint. And then when they assigned her to, well, when they scheduled her sentencing, I was like, I'm going. Can I please go?
Yes. Oh my God.
And my boss is amazing, and everyone in media is as well, is like they want you to like what you do and they want you
Mhm.
to like what you're covering because that's where you get the best stories, right? You're
Right.
passionate about it, you want to do it. So she's really good about letting us do whatever we want to do. So I was like, she let me go, and I was really excited about that and grateful for that. And yeah, I'm a huge Housewives fan, and I had to be there.
Yeah, you had to be there. When you did Teresa, were you able to go to any of those hearings or any of those like outside the courtrooms or
I wasn't because that was in what, like 2014, right?
yeah, it was
And
a
I think
while ago.
Yeah, and I started around like 2016, late 2015. So I wish that would have been like the highlight of my career if I was
Oh
able to
my
go to
gosh.
that.
It's so crazy to think that these like that would have been the highlight of your career, that's kind of I'm assuming what maybe inspired you to like do
Yeah.
some of this stuff.
Mhm.
And then to be like this in this place in your career and being like, well, I'm going to go cover John Shaw's sentencing now. Like it's super full circle. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I did. I interviewed Teresa a bunch of times, and I
Okay,
remember,
cool.
yeah, and the first time I interviewed her, we went somewhere in Pennsylvania. I think it was like a casino. She was
Mhm.
like, this was when right before their sentencing. I think they were just trying to like make some money.
Uh-huh.
And we I had went and this was like my first big interview. I was like, you are my like role model. I was like, I love you. You're my favorite housewife. Like, and she was kind of like, okay,
She's like,
like,
I'm on my
no,
way to prison. Thank
yeah,
you.
like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What other housewives have you interviewed? Or like your favorite interview?
Yeah, I love the Countess.
Oh my
Interviewing
gosh.
her is always the best. She throws the best events. It's always like tuna tartare,
Oh
like,
my gosh.
she's exactly how she is on TV. She's amazing. Sonia Morgan is hysterical.
I can only imagine.
Who else? Melissa Gorga, Joe Gorga. I love Joe Gorga.
You do. Are you going to cover any of those lawsuits, you think? Or
Which ones with Joe?
yeah, with Joe. I think he was like suing his tenant for something
Oh
and then
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and then I believe recently, don't quote me on this. He was like in trouble for doing some big like real estate development and the neighbors were getting pissed, but
Oh
I'm not
yeah.
I'm not totally sure if that's just something I dreamed up.
No, I think I've heard about that. I don't think I covered those because we have like, on our team, I have, other
Right.
reporters, we have an amazing team and we all work really hard. So I think, one of them covered it, but yeah, I mean, I will definitely keep an eye out for new ones.
Yeah, you could like have a one-on-one Andy style with
No, I
I
wish.
wonder if he'll do one with Jen Shaw.
I don't know because did you go to BravoCon? I don't know if
I
you discussed it.
didn't.
I feel like he was a little like dismissive. I feel like he said something along the lines of like she pled guilty. It's not someone we want to really work with. Didn't he say something like
I do remember hearing that. Yeah. Yeah.
that? And so I don't know if he's gonna. I feel like I don't know. I hope so.
I
I
hope
want to
so too.
hear.
I'm like so nosy. So Mike the situation sentencing.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Did you go there or did you have like read the transcripts? Like how did that play out for you?
Yeah, so I went there. That
Oh
was
my
my
gosh.
first big federal case. He was so handsome. He was like
Oh
so
my gosh.
like how he is on the show, like just like charismatic and like swagger. That's how he is
Yeah.
in person.
I just love his cheeks.
Yes, yes. And his wife was there, I believe.
Oh,
Well,
mhm.
his girlfriend, his fiance at the time, I think. Maybe wife,
Yeah.
I don't remember. His brother was there, his sister was there. Like everyone from the show, I remember being like, oh my God, that's his sister. I saw her. She was on Jersey Shore.
Oh my
Um, and he was really nice. I mean, he had a few fans there. He was nice to them. And I just remember, unlike Jen, I felt like he was like he listed all the reasons why he should just get probation.
God.
Like
Hmm.
he was basically like, I went to treatment, I've been sober for this long,
Hmm.
I'm, going to schools and talking to teenagers about drug use. Whereas Jen was more like, I'm going to pay the restitution, like,
Right.
and you can tell like the judge was very moved by him. And you can tell like she was only giving him 8 months because, with the guidelines, she kind of had to, but she was very impressed by him. That's why when we went to Jen and I saw the way the judge was interjecting and just
Hmm.
seemed like he didn't like her, I was so shocked because I never saw a judge do that.
Right. So when it was Mike's situation,
Yeah.
the judge wasn't as aggressive or things like that. Cause the Shaw judge
No.
was like, and how are you gonna do that? And I
Yes.
was like, okay, this was my first time in federal court. So I
Okay.
was like scared,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, I don't know if I could handle emotionally being interrupted like that and put on the spot, but she kind of took it like a champ after like her 3-minute pause.
The part where he was like, is she still selling the t-shirts? I
I
like jaw
know.
dropped. I was
I
like,
know. Is she? Is
is
she?
she?
Did anyone get one? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah. So the judge, you can tell like a major difference between
Yes.
them.
Yeah. The judge in Mike's was very, I think, impressed by how much I mean, what did he always say? That the comeback's greater than the setback? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it really was. And I feel like the judge respected that. Even when I went to the Josh Duggar
Mm-hmm.
sentencing, I think the judge wasn't like Jen's judge in the sense of being, I guess, more aggressive, but he did express that he felt like Josh wasn't remorseful. And
Mm,
he felt so like during these sentences, the judges really, they go in. It's really interesting to
yeah.
see.
Well, it's also, you think about, I mean, from my perspective, like everyone has such different perspectives when you're sitting in the courtroom. Like
Mhm.
you as a reporter have like this perspective, I'm assuming, of like the entertainment value here, but like the interest and the information and like the public necessity to like know what's going on in court.
Mhm.
And then as someone who works in a law firm, I was sitting there like thinking, what are the lawyers thinking? What is the judge thinking? And then the judge is sitting there knowing none of these people, like
Yeah.
knowing none of the pre stuff or not being able to care, and then really judging these people for who they think they are.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a different perspective. Like to see Josh Duggar and we all think he's a piece of shit,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then have a judge fully be like, yeah, you're kind of an unremorseful piece of shit. Like, really is confirmation that he is what we thought he was.
Yeah, and the judge said something that like, how sometimes people say something and it just sticks with you.
Oh yeah.
He said something, it was like, because the whole sentencing was like, well, this person is saying how amazing he is, and he helps finance this widow, and he helps he's a great father, all these things. And the judge was like, you've done many good things in your life. You've helped a lot of people, but what really makes a man a good man is what he does behind closed doors. And what you did behind closed doors, you're not a good man. And I
Oh
was,
my god. Oh my gosh.
like,
That's yeah. I mean, he's not a good man. So
yeah.
were you in the courtroom from what I remember from our conversation the whole
Hmm.
time or just the sentencing?
No, I was there for 2 weeks. I was in Arkansas for 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. What was
Hmm.
that like? Because I can only imagine it being exhausting,
Yes. Hmm.
a little emotional.
Yes, it was a hard 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get there, and do you guys all have like assigned seats? Or are you fighting for a seat in the courtroom every morning?
So I got really lucky because so we all I reached out to the clerk prior and I asked if they were doing assigned seating for media because that was just something you remember, Jen, how early we had to wake up.
Yes. Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
it's not something you want to do for 2 weeks, you know.
No.
So we had to like give them credentials. We had to, send our clips. I had covered every single filing, so I sent them like 30 clips with
Mm-hmm.
my work with the Sun. And I got reserved seating. Um, but I still there were so many people that I still like got there early every day because I always was just like I just felt like I needed to be there
Right.
whenever,
Yeah.
you know.
Totally.
But a lot of reporters didn't have assigned seating. But there was an overflow room,
Mm-hmm.
typical to like what they did with Jen. But during the trial, it wasn't that crowded. It only was crowded the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
And then the people who worked at the courthouse were really good about knowing, like, this reporter's been here since day one. I'm going to make sure they get in the courtroom. They were
Right.
very, very nice. Yeah.
That's good. And then how do you, when you're watching, because that, I mean, was a
Yeah.
crazy topic to cover. So
Hmm.
how did you like take notes or sit there and be like, this is an important fact for me to share, and this is like too much of a graphic fact for, because that's, you're so immersed.
I know. I think I filled three like full notebooks
Wow.
of information. It was just every day, constantly writing, constantly writing. We would get a break in the morning, a
Mhm.
break for lunch, and then a break in the afternoon. And once the jury walked out of the room, I'd run downstairs, send all of my info to, my Sun coworkers who
Mhm.
somehow read my handwriting and wrote everything. We had the blog that was super successful. And yeah, it was it was really hard. It was so much information. And I remember there were times where I would like star something in my notebook and I would tell them, we have to do this angle as a separate, and then this needs to
Mm.
go in the blog.
Mhm.
I sent everything, even like the really graphic stuff I sent. But my coworkers do a really good job of knowing what should be published and what shouldn't be published. So I was really lucky to have a good team at home while I was there in the courtroom.
Mhm.
But I feel like anything that I thought was interesting, I felt like, my readers would think was interesting.
Yeah.
Because there was like a day in court where it was all about, because Josh's defense was arguing that a coworker obtained the child, you remember, downloaded the
Yeah.
child porn through the
Mhm.
router,
Right.
and the federal agents did not seize the router. So that was their whole argument that, they should have seized it and they would have seen that he did not commit this crime.
Right.
Um,
Sure
so it
can.
was like, yeah. So it was 2 days of like just very heavy like forensics and technological
Mhm.
stuff, which I knew like if I was having a hard time keeping up, it would be hard to relate to the reader.
Right.
So I really like focused on like I was more interested in like the fact that, he downloaded the child porn and then went to Home Depot and took a selfie with Anna like 30 minutes later. Like that to me was like really interesting.
Right. Yeah, the human
No.
aspect
Yeah.
part is what's like,
And that his children were his screensaver on his computer, like
what the hell?
like stuff like that. And then also, watching like I remember when Jill walked in and
Mhm.
she's estranged from the family, Josh like lit up and gave her the biggest hug because that was probably the first time he's seen her in years.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, I was like, okay, this needs to be a separate, so it's basically like whatever to me was like my jaw dropped was
Mhm.
what I was kind of saying, we need to do this.
Yeah. A lot of people were curious about Jim Bob and
Yeah.
like what and I didn't follow every day, so I'm not sure like how participatory Jim Bob was in this
Mhm.
trial. What was he there every day? What was his vibe?
So Jim Bob was there maybe the last 4 days of the trial. The trial lasted 2 weeks. There was no family the first week, and
Mm.
only the last few days did the families start coming in. I think the only family members actually that came the first few days was Derek Dillard and
Mhm.
then Joy and Austin. They were there almost every day. But so I remember when I saw Jim Bob for the first time, he was like smiling. If you remember, his campaign was like a few days after the guilty verdict, where they
Yeah.
were gonna, I think it was like the Tuesday after. And I remember him going to people saying, like, "Are you from Arkansas? Are you from Arkansas? Oh, you're from Arkansas? Make sure to vote for me for, you know."
Ew, in the courtroom?
Yeah, and I'm in the lobby, and I remember thinking, like, your son is upstairs on child for child porn, and you're like telling this Arkansas resident to vote for you. I
That's
mean, it
so,
was, it
that's
was,
surreal.
yeah. And there was a moment where I'll never forget this. Prosecution had this expert witness on and he basically shut down all of the defense's router theory.
Mhm.
And Jim Bob was sitting there like
Oh, wow. Like animated.
animated and like basically like, this guy is, not, he didn't say full of, but
Right. But
essentially
his
his
gesture was like,
mannerisms.
he's full of it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it.
Wow. That's so weird.
Mhm.
That's weird. So he was like campaigning and like gesturing in there the
Yes,
whole time.
yes, yes.
That's so weird. So when would you, after sitting through a topic like that, like is there anything you think you wouldn't be able to sit through? I mean, to me that's the worst of the worst. So like
Yeah.
if push comes to shove and like our beloved housewife is up on the stand next for something terrible, like is there anything you wouldn't cover?
No, I think I would cover it all. I feel like that's part of the job.
Yeah.
And the sun is amazing in the sense that like if there's something we don't feel comfortable covering, they would never pressure or push you to do it.
Mhm.
And for something like this, it was probably the hardest thing to sit through. I mean, what you read in the court documents, like I thought I was prepared. I was like, okay, I read
Yeah.
the court documents. They're just kind of gonna read the court docs. It was 1,000 times more detailed. It was a lot more graphic. It was really hard. Everyone in the courtroom, I mean, people were tearing, people
Oh
were,
yeah.
pale. The jury, I mean, thank God the jury, I believe they were able to get counseling after, because they actually had to look at it. Like we
Oh
fortunately
yeah.
didn't have to. They did. So I don't I think after this, I think I can say I can sit through,
Yeah, I think
you
you
know.
can too. Yeah. So the jury, would they like, you know, like be so upset that they couldn't look? I mean, you have to look if you're a juror, right? You
You
can't like keep your eyes shut.
Yeah, no, they all looked. You have to look.
Ugh,
There were times where someone would, kind of, put their head down or,
right.
kind of be like, like I mean it's
Come
hard,
on, dude.
but
Yeah.
they all looked. Yeah, they had, it
Wow. Our civil heroes, really.
I know. And that's why I was glad when the court provided them with counseling after because I was like, that's so difficult to look at.
Yeah. So difficult to look at. Ugh. So you're covering Chris, wow, sharp change of topic. You're covering Chrisley now.
Oh
Um so it seems like you've been following them since before the sun, like Radar, all
yeah.
that. So is that just like, have you been watching the show? How did you become invested in the Chrisleys?
I love the Chrisleys. I love the show. I mean, before the whole indictment, I thought they were hysterical. I loved watching Todd. I remember when I don't know, their London episode, they were so funny. I love the family.
Yeah, they're fun to watch.
Yeah. And a good thing about the Sun is that they, like I said before, they really, if you're passionate about something, they let you do it.
Hmm.
So, whenever I pitch Chrisley or something, they always let me run with it and kind of do what I wanted, what I really care about doing. And that does well, of course, with reason.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I always loved the Chrisleys. I don't know how Todd and Julie are gonna handle prison.
I know they're
They
checking
won.
in, right?
Yeah, I think they checked in yesterday.
Oh my God. Praying for them.
I don't know how Todd's gonna be. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like Todd's gonna have a problem, but I feel like Julia's gonna be the head bitch in charge of
He's
whatever
gonna be
prison she's
fine.
at. Yeah, she's gonna be like, "Hi, I'm making cookies.
Yeah,
They're like out of hooch and like solar panels, but she's gonna like do it up.
if
She'll be
Teresa
Martha Stewart."
if Teresa can do it, Julie Chrisley is fine, I think.
Exactly. Exactly. So what do you want to do next? Like what's next for you? Like do you want to cover more trials,
Mhm.
more like pleadings? Like where do you see your interest sort of peaking around?
I definitely want to do more trials.
Hmm.
Anytime like I said, anytime someone gets sued, I want to I want to go to the trial. I want to go to the court hearings.
Kindred spirits, you and I.
Yeah,
I
you,
love
you
that.
you enjoy it too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was listening to your episode, I think part one of the Jen Shaw that you
Hmm.
did. And you and your guest were talking about how we were like the only ones in like the room who knew what was going on. And there's
Hmm.
just something so interesting about the fact that like there's only a small group of people who sees the reactions and sees what's happening. And I just think that's so like exciting and exhilarating. And
It's
I want to
very
know more of them.
interesting.
Yeah.
And it's fun to read about, like, and hear about, like, I would never ever have known about Jim Bob, like, waving to people,
Yeah.
like, and we need people who know that that's important in
Yeah.
the room, because the court transcript lady isn't going to write that down.
Exactly. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to covering anything with law and legal coming up. I just did I interviewed a Josh Duggar's fellow inmates
Oh,
family member, and she gave me all the tea on the prison, all of like the horrific
oh
conditions,
my God.
Anna and everything, visiting with the kids,
Oh
and
my gosh. I can't wait to read that
yeah,
story. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So yeah, just keeping it going.
Okay, well, I'm like so thankful that you are like came on this podcast and like educated us and just like graced us with your presence. And I hope you'll come back on and be
Yeah,
our boots on the ground
anytime.
correspondent. I
Yeah,
mean, this is just like
anytime.
so incredible. I loved this. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Is there any way we can follow you? Anything you want to plug while you're here?
Oh yeah, everyone definitely check out The Sun, please. We have like an amazing team. We have, Jessica Finn is on top of like the Wendy Williams beat. I don't know if you
Ooh.
guys are obsessed with that as I am, but
Mhm.
we have Diana Cooper who's going to be doing all Bachelor all season. She already has a bunch of exclusives in the works. We have Katie Forrester, who is going to be all on Lisa Marie Presley's death.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just like we have an amazing team. So yeah, please check out the website.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And the Instagram, I follow you guys on Instagram and
Mhm.
like the graphics are great.
Oh my, we have the best photo team.
Yeah. I mean, I'm impressed. I love the sun. Like
Yeah.
love. Yes.
I'm glad you do because we started in November, I think 2019 we launched, or that's
Hmm.
when I started. I think we ended up launching in 2020, the US side of it.
Right.
And it was a team of like really small team, and now we have so many people, so many departments. Our photo team's great, our video is great. So yeah, we're really proud of what we've made of it.
Well, you're like one of my number one sources. Like I love the sun. So thank you so much for coming on here. And I
Of course,
cannot
thanks for having
wait
me.
to talk with you again.
I can't wait to talk to you too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay.